And tonight on PM Express, we are back at the labor unrest. In fact, we started the new year with TEU, who had to cancel their strike on January 5 with the hope of going back to the table on January 10. We don't know whether that has happened, but we know that UTAG has today asked its members to withdraw teaching and all related activities, accusing government of failing to address their concerns. This is not the first time we've been here. I mean, are there workable solutions to these labor issues? If there are, why are we not exploring them? Well, tonight we'll attempt to find lasting solutions. Workable solutions to what we are confronted with. But that would only happen after we've understood what we are dealing with. So what is UTAG demanding? I'll take you through it briefly because it's directed its members to lay down their tools today. Now, UTAG says not only has government failed to address the concerns within the agreed timelines, it has also implemented recommendations of labor market survey report in a manner that the association deems meaningless. What does this mean? Thankfully, Professor Nuno, who is president of UTAG, will be joining us soon. He will explain this to us. Now, this is the reaction from NLC. It says, both disputing parties must appear before the commission on Wednesday, January 12. And this is what people are talking about. That could the NLC have been more proactive and to meet the UTAG members or leaders of UTAG before this day? Because they actually gave them a hint that today, January 10, they will go on a strike if their issues are not dealt with. So why is NLC not being proactive? Now, what was the outcome of the meeting? The last meeting they had before this strike, both parties agreed that there's a need to get back to the negotiating table from the weeks beginning August 23, 2021. They also agreed on signing a roadmap for negotiation as agreed at the previous consultative meeting between the two parties, which imposes a 1-month mandatory period beginning 23rd August 2021 for negotiations. Has that happened? No. Again, both parties agree that whilst government discontinue all legal processes, UTAG should also take steps to call off its ongoing strike. Now, finally, government must acknowledge the need to improve the working conditions of university teachers with all the seriousness it deserves. We've been back and forth on this case. Teachers demanding for what they think they're due. Government going into meetings, setting dates and asking them to call off strikes. But here we are back at this. Now, UTAG is demanding the implementation of a 2012 single spine package. What does it entail? This will put entry-level lecturers on a salary of $2,084. And so I'll just give you a bit of the TEU suspension. It agreed to suspend its action meant to demand outstanding arrears relating to their professional development allowance. This is coming up because we have the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission here on this show. They will tell us what is happening with that. Now, the decision was taken after an emergency meeting at the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations. Now, they were supposed to go back to the table for this conversation, and that was supposed to happen today, January 10. Whether it has happened or not, we'll be finding out more because that meeting was between the Labor Relations Ministry and TEU. Now, we have its representative, which is the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. They'll be telling us whether that meeting has also happened. I'll introduce to you my guest after this break. My guest tonight, Solomon Nuno, Professor Solomon Nuno. He is president of UTAG. Now, Ofotwa Samuel, he is executive secretary of the National Labour Commission, will be joining us. Benjamin Atta is CEO of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. He joins me in the studio. Good to see you. It's been a while. Happy New Year.
Yeah, many happy returns.
And also joining us is Austin Gami, who were confronted with this matter. You and your members had to suspend your strike. That was when the National Labour Commission also withdrew its case from court. Now, what exactly was the agreement you had with government, which you accuse it of breaching? All right, so I'm told we lost Professor Nuno. He will join us back and tell us what exactly the agreement was, but then I would have to come to the studio. Why is it difficult for government to deal with this matter? Why are we going back and forth on this matter?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me greet our viewers and Happy New Year to all our viewers. In the first place, UTAG complained of delays in giving them copies for their study, that is a labor market survey. And the agreement was that on 31st, which was the latest date set, government ought to give them copies of the labor market survey. And indeed, government made the labor market survey ready on the 31st. I personally called them, ready to meet them, for them to be given copies. But because, so we have given your producer a picture of Professor Nunu and his colleagues taking hard copies, and we did not end up there, we gave them soft copies. So we thought that having met the criteria, the reason for their strike, they were going to call off the strike. But interestingly, in fact, lest I forget, we also agreed with them at that meeting that other outstanding issues that they had raised, we wanted to meet them today to discuss. So we sent them invitation on the same 6th.
Okay.
After they had left market survey, they did not do that. They rather issued a second communique that they want to embark on strike. And some of the reasons that they cited would definitely culminate in dialogue. So already we have invited you for dialogue. Why would you not want to show up for us to dialogue, have a peaceful atmosphere, and reach consensus on the matter, but rather you want to be on the street?
But why hasn't government also met the deadline that both of you agreed on?
We met the deadline, and that was to make provision, give them a copy on the 31st.
Okay.
And you know, this is a survey that others had participated. You couldn't just simply give them a copy without running the copy through the people who commissioned it. So on 31st, it was ready. And we called them, but you know, UTAG executives are, all of them are not assembled in Accra. For example, the president is in Takwa. The other executives are coming from UCC, some of them from UDS and the rest. So they needed time to assemble themselves. But of course, even if you believe the government had delayed in 3 working days, that is still not enough grounds for you to say that nationwide you are going to shut down universities. It is not enough reason to do that. And we believe that the way forward is dialogue. We had already written to National Labour Commission, complained of that, because if you have grievances, we have adequate provisions in the labor law that try dialogue. If you believe that, we cannot dialogue, you have the option of introducing a third-party intervention to come into the matter. That also has not been done by UTAG. They have not also exercised the option of using arbitration. National Labour Commission is there. They could complain, but they have not also used that mechanism. So therefore, what do they stand to gain? What is their intention? So we at Fair Wages have made a complaint to National Labour Commission to intervene in the matter and call us. And whatever the issues are, we believe that dialogue is the way forward. I'm appealing to UTAG members and their executive that, look, in this country, whatever you do for a strike, the last resort is that we need to meet and talk. So there's no need shying away from each other.
But they say each time you meet and talk and you agree on something, government does not abide by its own words. So they don't trust government anymore.
Oh, how many times?
All right, thankfully, Professor Nunu himself is...
I wanted to make a comment. Okay. How many times can they cite an example? Government has met its obligation. And look, government also agreed with UTAG on their terms and conditions, on their book research and allowance. And just about 3 months ago, an agreement was signed to that effect, waiting for implementation. So when you say that government reneges on its promise, for me, as far as I'm concerned, as far as Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is concerned, that is not the situation.
Okay.
That is not the situation.
Okay.
There should be another reason for their strike,
right,
other than protection of their economic rights.
So Professor Nunu is here. Prof, I asked you that the last time we had to deal with this matter, your members suspended your strike after the National Labour Commission also withdrew its case from court. What was the agreement you had with government, which you accuse it of breaching?
Okay, so at the time, the agreement that we had with government was that our employers were going to ensure that we'll be able to conclude on the remaining issues that have to do with conditions of service. So issues concerning the conditions of service, we did talk about the research allowance that he's alluding to at the moment. Aside that one also, we talked about the market premium. And also the third point we looked at was that government and then UTAG were going to sit and also look at whatever is necessary to improve the working conditions of the university teachers. So these are the basic things that we looked at the time.
But you say that the NLC has implemented recommendations of labor market survey report in a manner that you deem meaningless. I mean, how is that?
Okay, so first of all, I heard Mr. Asa talking about the fact that on 31st of December, the report was ready, but we were not in Accra to pick the report up. I'm an Accra boy, though I work in Tafa. And I've been in Accra since the 22nd of December. I've not gone outside Accra. So within Greater Accra, I have been here. If he had called me on 31st, I'll be available to pick it. But he and I know, which I can show phone records, that he called for us to come and pick the report up on the 5th of December. So you call me to pick a report on the 5th of December, and you sit on national television to inform the whole world that the report was ready on 31st, but I wasn't in Accra. You can check my records. I've not been outside Accra for the past 2-3 weeks. I've been here.
So when did they reach out to you to pick the report?
On the 5th of December, that we should come and pick it. And quickly, I had to assemble my guys from around the country for them to show up for us to come and pick the report. And if you recall, he himself said, "Oh, Prof, it looks like you have very good organizational skills. You've managed to marshal your people to come in less than 24 hours. That was his exact word. So I'm surprised that now, all of a sudden, he's talking about the fact that they were ready, but we were not ready. That is a blatant lie.
Okay, so how do you respond to this?
Yeah, not to maybe attack his personality.
Yeah.
But you know that 31st, when the report was ready, the subsequent days were holidays. And that is precisely what I have said, that because of the break, we were not able to hand over the copies of the report to them, because the earliest time that they could be available was when they made themselves available. Okay. But look, let's be very serious in this nation. You want to go on strike because government has given you a report 3 days after when you anticipated it. Is that enough reason to go on strike? No.
Prof, is that enough reason to go on strike?
It's about bad faith, because Fair Wages and Salaries Commission will agree with us that they requested for 31st of October for the submission of the report. But you said we were magnanimous to say that, okay, we are giving you enough time for you to be able to get this done by 31st of December. And if you look at what we stated in our communique that we gave in November, we stated we were interested in not just issuing of the report, but its implementation as well. So its implementation is the most important thing to us, and that is what we are interested in at this time.
Well, I'll bring in Mr. Austin Game. Mr. Game, I'm grateful for your time. You have warned that if government does not handle the labor issues differently, it will be difficult for government this year. How different should government approach this?
Thank you, and indeed, Happy New Year to all of you and my friends there. The reality, thank you. The reality dawning on all of us at this point in time is a manifestation of what I said earlier. You see, even the angle from which the conversation is drifting to may not be helpful to the parties. this business of perception that this is who UTAG people are, this is who the employer, I want to call government employer, the employer represented by fair wages are, and so forth and so on, may not help the parties. You see, repeating error or repetitive error will only serve this kind of situation. So I want to plead with the two parties. What they can do, one aspect of it is what Mr. Atta said, and one aspect is what my friend Professor Nuno also said. They have no choice because eventually the two parties have to talk. And if there is no talking, there certainly will be no solution. So the two parties will have to engage and have a conversation around the subject matter, perhaps differently from the kind of perception that is sitting between the two parties. Sometimes it is better to have maybe a third party. I agree the National Labour Commission is there, but it does seem as if there is some kind of mistrust also from one side to the Labour Commission. That notwithstanding, is the institution that we have in place. And I believe in them. However wrong they might be for now, I want to say that they can submit themselves to them, or the two parties can also agree to have the services of whosoever they want to sit between them and drive the process of the negotiation. By this way, they may reach agreement, because I think it's a solvable situation they have on their hand, but maybe the approach is different. And therefore, we need some other skill and approach to bring about solution.
Now, you've suggested also that one of the surest way of dealing with this is to invite leaders of the groups and be upfront with them. How easy will this be for government?
Well, the employer have no choice. Illumination is a critical part of labor relations. If you don't throw light on a situation and face up the issues clearly, is it honestly, do they have the money to meet all the demands of UTAG? Do they have a part of it, or they have nothing? Do they have any genuine fear? They should open up the cards. That is illumination. And the integrity of the conversation must have no doubt in the minds of any of them. If they don't have that on the table and ensure that there is 100% inclusivity in the conversation, they will always be doubting each other, have seated between them perceptions, and it will not help anybody. So I invite them to find a way of driving this process this way, and I think that they should be able to get somewhere.
Ms. Atta, Ms. Osingame may just make the point, and he says you must be blunt, you must be upfront with the leaders of the union so that we can just have a lasting solution to this matter. And he says, can government pay all that they are asking for? Is it part that you can pay, or you cannot pay at all? What are your challenges?
Well, before I get to the payment, the issues on board, the first one that they raised was to receive a copy of the labor market survey.
Okay.
And that has been done. And not just done anyhow.
Okay.
We called them, made a presentation. There and then, we also invited them for a meeting today to discuss the other outstanding matters, which they agree. And today we met, despite the fact that they are on strike. Government showed that respect to UTAG. And today we met at GTEC conference room, to the GTEC office to discuss outstanding matters. So government has demonstrated the show of good faith at all times. And we want them to do that. You see, when you come and place a demand, you want to negotiate. That has been done. You sign an agreement that this is the amount that you're going to take. And you issue a communique distancing yourself from the same agreement that you have signed. That is a show of another bad faith. Of course, UTAG also agreed that they will give us their feedback on the said report. And these are a group of people who have done research to a very great extent. Okay. So we expect that if there is a research, findings in the report that has been given to you, instead of you going on strike, complaining of implementation guidelines, which we already have in some form in the report and in the government white paper. Okay. You are lecturers. You have done research to a very great deal. So give us the feedback. You can even give alternatives. Nothing stops you from doing that. So the point here is that we have several alternatives for having amicable settlement. We have led the way by inviting you, talking to you, give us your grievances, we are ready to resolve them. And even as we continue to engage you, you still insist that you want to be on the street. Okay. And that is where we have a problem.
But does government have what it takes to deal with it?
Definitely. If government did not have, we would not be inviting them. Okay. That's why we have taken the matter to National Labour Commission. Look, whether you believe in National Labour Commission or not, that is the structure we have for now. Okay. And government cannot also institute lockout and say that because UTAG is not bringing the feedback on the same report, we're also going to lock out. Okay. That is not government's orientation, and government does not intend to do that. But let me be very emphatic. The issue of labor market survey has to do with government doing a research to find out what type of skills are highly scarce and critical to the public service. Okay. And that is what is contained in the report. So that government will be able to use mechanisms such as market premium or inducement to retain and to attract critical skills. And that is the prerogative of government, of an employer. It is not an entitlement to anybody to talk of not having a report or nobody giving you implementation plan, and for that matter, you are entitled to for which you want to even go on strike. Okay. So it is purely, established for government to use it as a tool. Okay. What is yours, we have already negotiated. If you are talking about allowances, that has been done. Book and research allowances, we have agreed to it, to give you the $1,600. Okay. It has been agreed to. When you talk about other responsibility allowances, that has been agreed to peacefully.
Okay, so what is left on the table to be dealt with?
Well, according to them, they want to see how government intends to retain and attract critical skills. This is the prerogative of the employer. And you don't go on strike to say that the employer wants to use a mechanism to make sure that if there are critical skills missing, the employer wants to do A or B. You don't come in there. Okay. And the same government white paper that they cited, it is the same 2013 government white paper that gives the clear guidelines on how market premium, shall be determined. And to quote from it, it says that market premium shall be determined by government and it shall not be subject to negotiation. And it cannot be granted across board, because when we, from the report, when it is made public, we all get to know the critical skills that is very, in high demand. Okay. That is required on the labor market. Okay. So we want to, it's a strategy for us to make sure that people who are not interested in subject to become maybe, let's say, a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer, that person will be attracted to go and learn and come as a mechanical engineer, and that is the tool. Okay. It is for government to use. It's not for any labor group to agitate on it.
Professor Nunu is still on with me. Professor Nunu, which part of the implementation of the survey report do you deem meaningless? And what is your own feedback, your recommendation? Just as Mr. Asa has said, you've not presented any feedback to government. You've just only gone on strike after being handed the report.
Okay, before I address the question that you just raised, Mr. Atta said something that has to do with the research allowance. He said that we have signed, they are paying $1,600, and the way he's sounding is like, oh, these are ungrateful people who don't know what they are doing. But the fact remains that we signed onto a document that has not been implemented also up to this point. We signed this document on the 6th of October, agreeing to a certain research allowance to be paid. this research allowance that we have agreed to for government to pay or our employer to pay to us, the employer up to now has not operationalized. Last year, they were supposed to pay a difference of 1,000 Ghana cedis to us. That has not been done. And he knows that that was also part of the reasons why we had this meeting today. So aside that one also, you see a situation whereby we sign onto agreements that are never implemented. So this is a problem that we need to always deal with. When it comes to the labor market survey, we always, as he himself stated, for us to see its implementation, it's important that we know the guidelines that the government is going to go by. Our employer, as at 2014, actually conducted one, but it was never used. So 2014, you conducted one, you never used the document. 2019, you conducted one, you only managed to bring out a report in 2022. And the 2022 report that you even brought out, what are your plans for you to implement this particular program? You'll say, oh, we are waiting for you, UTAG, now to come and critique the document before we can tell you what our implementation strategy is going to be. So waiting for us to critique the document before implementation strategy, that is highly problematic. So you don't need to wait for me to bring in my concerns and my reasons or my problems that I have with the document before you start talking about that. And in any case, they gave us 2 weeks for us to put together our thoughts. But today when we met, I did state that we definitely will bring our thoughts on it, our recommendations on what we think about the report before the end of the deadline. And we are committed to that. We are working assiduously to ensure that this is done. But it's important that if they bring out the guidelines and what are also their timelines in terms of implementation. If I know your timelines that, okay, for this report that has come, we need 1 week for us to involve all stakeholders for them to critique the document and bring a feedback back to us. After that one, we are expecting that in the next 1 month, we are going to look at implementing, sitting down to look at the numbers that we are attached to it. Yes, it's the prerogative of the employer to decide whether to pay market premium or otherwise. But at the end of the day, as a worker, I also have a right to know what I'm being paid for the work that I'm doing. So it is not that the employer will decide that I want to pay this, and so it's either you take it or leave it. If you are not ready to take it, then I'm not interested in working with you. We can't keep doing the things the same old way and expect new results. It's high time for us to engage in better ways than the way we have done in the past.
But for the sake of national interest, wouldn't it have been ideal for you to present your feedback on that document before actually complaining about the implementation strategy?
What our members were interested in was to know what the implementation strategy is, not just about the problems we have with the report. Time and again, we have stated about how we even have a problem with how the data was collected. When you come to the universities, data was collected whereby you gave 10 questionnaires to administrators for them to decide who fills the whole thing. Interestingly, you read the report and you see in some instances they are telling you that cleaners are in short supply, unlike teachers, university teachers. So cleaners and university teachers, which ones are of importance to us, and how difficult is it for us to replace a cleaner from a university teacher? You administrators and the university teacher. If we see all of these things coming up in the report and we are not seeing your strategy, how you want to even go about with its implementation, it becomes very, very problematic.
But Mr. So what's the difficulty in sharing your implementation strategy with the union?
There is no difficulty at all.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that if UTAG wants to show good faith and to make sure that the parents and the non-teaching staff together with them will exist peacefully on the campuses and not cause Ghana to lose money for work, for days not worked.
Okay.
Definitely. This will not be an issue to strike on. Number one, the government white paper gives guidelines. In fact, that white paper is a complete guideline on how market premiums should be implemented. And they have already cited that document. And not only that, in the same report, there are recommendations. And what stops you from giving alternatives if you have one? Must you go on strike? And you see, the principle here is that the labor market survey is to advise the employer as to how the employer will be able to employ, retain critical skills, and then attract critical skills.
Okay.
And that is for the employer. It is not anybody's entitlement as labor. Of course, we continue to stay with the interim market premium, which government is paying faithfully. There are no issues about that one. But when you talk about market premium, the essence of it is that maybe in this organization, there is a need to have a certain photographer.
Okay.
You don't have it. Even if there is one here, you want more. So you have decided that at the negotiated rate, which you are paying, you as an employer, you want to add a certain amount to that of that photographer so that another photographer somewhere will be attracted. That is not the entitlement of that photographer. It is you, the employer, who is using that device to be able to retain the one and to attract others. So you don't even go on strike at all. Government could have decided not to share the report.
But Professor Nuno has mentioned an amount of money that you were supposed to pay them, which has not been paid. Look, why is that?
In the agreement was last 3 months. And not only that, the arrears. We know that there is a need for us to have a conversation about it on implementation, and out of goodwill and respect. You must remember that it's not only the employer at the workplace. The employee, the worker, is equally important. So we trade whatever positives that we have. You have the capital and the investment. I also have the skill. So out of respect, we invited them way before they issued the second communique. That is goodwill that come. And in fact, he would tell you that when they came today, the conversation did not even center around the strike. It centered around the original agenda that he had raised. And we have shown them goodwill. So look, if government owes you, definitely government will pay. I hope you get it.
But
can I land?
I think it's a question.
So the point here is that even if there has been a month or two delay, what stops you from coming for us to negotiate and to agree on a set date?
But what has been government's communication to them, the group?
Goodwill.
In terms of this amount that needs to be paid?
Goodwill. You see, in their communique, if you read it or project it on this screen, you realize that they have not had issues with it.
Okay.
One of the key reasons that they have cited is the report. The report has been delivered. And then they shift the post and give other reasons. And we are saying that implementation of labor market survey, government can decide that, look, maybe as a matter of employment policy, we want to change course. And we are not even interested in attracting and retaining such critical skills. Maybe as a matter of policy, we want to look at this option. We want to look at this option. So please, our UTAG colleagues must understand that Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has been set up for them and for the rest.
Okay.
National Labour Commission has been set up for issues like this.
Right.
So when we have impasse, nothing stops us from going there to get amicable settlement. And I'm inviting them that they should come to us as we are ready to get to them. Let's settle this matter amicably.
Yeah, definitely.
Not strike.
The National Labour Commission has issued a statement in the last few hours. Its Executive Secretary, Fosu Asamoah, is supposed to join us. He hasn't joined yet. So Fosu Asamoah, if you are hearing us, you must join this conversation, because a lot of the issues is laying at your doorstep and you need to come in. But I need to clarify this with you, Mr. Austin Gami. The bit about retaining critical skills, what does the law say? Is there anything that government can do to say, okay, for peace to prevail and for us to move on from where we are, we can share with you how we intend to retain critical skills? What does the law say about this? Retain critical skills.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm afraid that the angle from which supposedly they've gone to a meeting today, and that meeting should have produced a certain kind of result, so that at this, as we have this conversation tonight, the two of them would have said that, well, at this meeting today, this was the way we ended it, and therefore UTAG is ready to call off their strike, not even suspend, call off their strike to enable them to continue with the conversation. But it does appear I'm hearing no such statement from both sides, and that confirms my fears that, and from the angle that both parties are restating their strong views about the issue, whether to share the information or not to share the information, and if we share, it's still our prerogative, and so forth and so on, may not help the matter. Mr. Atta knows I know him in and out, and therefore I will urge him to take it easy and re-engage them, and I urge the union also to understand and appreciate where the employer is coming from. And if you watch and took notice of my I am consistently saying employer, because I don't want us to introduce the dirty partisan politics into this business. So it's about the employer and working people, the union and management. It's very, very important we stay that course. Now, having said so, you see, this is about salary administration. We have a very poor salary administration regime in the country already, even in certain circumstances in the private sector. That having been said, we have three segments. We have the base pay, we have the variable pay, we have the indirect pay. The problem is who pays for the variable pay? If, for instance, market premium is going to be paid, if you say you're going to give it to them, it's not negotiable, then how are you going to be engaging, and why are they even on strike on some of these things? So we clearly need to put these things to bed now. And if they don't do it, it will be a repetitive error, not only with UTAG, but with various other bodies. And believe it or not, market premium is not limited to UTAG members. So once this conversation is over and a certain amount is paid, the same will reflect. Do the employer have the money? How much can they pay? How much can they not pay? So it's not a business of prerogative. Prerogative is yesterday things. We shouldn't even bring it at all. All we need now is the integrity of the two parties. And I want to urge them, and I agree with Mr. Atta, I agree with Mr. Nuno, they must get together and talk. And if you're going to be talking, then one side should not hold the other side's hand at the back. And it's not so much about even labor commission. The two parties, especially fair wages, should be given an unfettered opportunity by all bodies, so that they can, and I urge the unions to listen to them, and they must also be open to them, share the relevant information. That is what is in the law, Section 97. And we must learn to pay people based upon what they do, and not just appearance at the workplace. I think that Mr. Atta should be able to begin the dialogue properly, and I think they will be able to reach agreement. I want to urge them on they should do just that. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble.
Now, Professor Nuno, looking at the stance both parties have taken, is that to suggest that today, the outcome of today's meeting wasn't anything that could resolve the issues?
As Mr. Atta rightly said, today's meeting had nothing to do with this strike action. But I want to clarify some few things. You see, he keeps referring to the government-wide report on market premium. The same document also talks about the fact that the market premium needs to be worked on every 5 years, which has not been done so far. So that is a problem in itself. And also, Mr. Atta makes it sound as if our interest is in receiving the labor market survey report. The interest is not into the receiving of the labor market survey report, but our interest is into solving the erosion of our salaries that has happened over the past 9 years. In 2013, the market premium that we were receiving was actually 114% of our basic salary. Currently, as it stands today, the market premium we are receiving, because there was a freeze on it and it has become an absolute value, is just about 50% of the basic salary. So you'll notice that there has been a huge erosion when we talk about the money we are receiving in terms of our market premium at the moment. So the issues we discussed today at the meeting, basically it has to do with the research allowance, the fact that we have signed a document that from October 6th up till today is the 10th of January 2022, we have still not received the difference in research allowance we were supposed to be paid. Also, it comes to research allowance also. Gone were the days that it was always paid in May or June of the applicable year. But today, last year we received research allowance well into October before the money started trickling in slowly. And so these are things that we needed to talk about. There's also a third angle that we raised during the meeting today. That has to do with the implementation of Ghana National Research Fund Act. The act has been passed into law, but its operationalization has become problematic. And we believe that if this document is also operationalized, it means university teachers and other researchers who are interested in doing meaningful research that has an impact on the country will then have a channel or a source of funds that they can go to access money to do their work. So, in fact, these are the things that have caused us to go on the strike. So all we are saying is that in the interim, if government needs maybe 2 years, 3 months, 4 days, whatever period they need for them to do this implementation, then all they need to do is to restore us to our current the market value of 114% to be our market premium. And then with that one, they can take their time and slowly implement the document and go through the motions as they are talking. And it's important that Mr. Atta also takes notice of the fact that, yes, the employer has a prerogative for him to decide what market premium is. But government white papers are always coming out from the presidency by the government. But we as employees also have a say into what exactly should be paid to us, because we know of our worth and we want to ensure that you also take cognizance of what we are worth and you pay us accordingly. And that is what has brought us to where we are. There's a need to dialogue. There's a need to find a solution to what needs to be paid to us. Going about it, the method that Fair Wages is going about it at the moment will never give us a lasting solution. It will only give a temporary solution that has no lasting impact to help us resolve the issue.
I'll take a break on PM Express. When I return, we need to move on from here. Thankfully, both parties have agreed that there needs to be dialogue. NLC has invited all stakeholders to a meeting. How is it going to be like? What are the expectations for this meeting? Stay with me. I'm coming right back. Welcome back to PM Express. We're looking at the UTAG strike, and we're also looking at how to find a lasting solution to the labor unrest. Now, National Labour Commission has issued a statement in the last few hours inviting UTAG and all other stakeholders to a meeting on Wednesday, and excerpts reads, UTAG should have complied with Section 159 of Act 651, where the Commission would be served the required notice to enable it to intervene immediately. This notwithstanding, the Commission is in line with mandates under Section 138 of Act 651 and also an exercise of its powers under Section 139 of Act 651, rights to invite the disputing parties to appear before the National Labour Commission on Wednesday, January 2022 at 2:30 p.m. for a hearing of the issues in dispute. If Professor Nuno is on, is this a meeting that you will honor?
We are discussing it, and then we'll see how best we can honor this invitation. But the thing is that paragraph 2 of that document, where Labour Commission is saying that we never alerted them to it, we were at their workplace several times, and they stated and the security officer out there told us that they've been informed not to allow anyone into the building, and that they went on Christmas break on the 20th of December, and they'll be resuming work today, the 10th of January. I'm yet to see any government institution that was able to close down for this long, where essential services were not allowed to run. So they went on break from 20th of December, and they resumed on the 10th of January. So you get to the place to serve them any letters, they tell you that you cannot serve the letters. Security officer tells you, I cannot receive this letter because I've been instructed not to take them. So these are the problems that we had. So finally, we had to email it to them and also send them by courier service. And it's interesting that courier service was sent to the mail. The same is in your box, and you are saying that it's your email too, but it's about having it and working with it. It's surprising that you claim that you were on break for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, government institution. Where is this done?
What are your expectations of the meeting on Wednesday, if you finally agree that you will go for that meeting?
Finally, we expect that if they will be non-partisan in their discussion, whereby they wouldn't behave like an appendage of government, then that would be great. Today, you might have seen in the media the boss of the NLC going about making statements that are mostly falsehood to the effect. So you look at it, it's like their behavior is like they're an appendage of government. So you are not sure of how fair they would be when they are going to discuss. As Mr. Atta rightly said, that is the only body we have to talk about labor issues. But the behavior of the persons put in charge has always been problematic. And that is why labor unions don't trust the NLC.
Mr. Arthur, you are a labor consultant even before CEO of the National Labor Commission. This should work out, right? Take out partisan issues, put it aside, and address the issues technically.
Yes, that's why technically Fair Wages made a complaint today to National Labor Commission to intervene in the matter. But if my friends in UTAG are listening, he mentioned that the interest was not in the report, but the interest is in the better conditions of service that they expected. I agree. Okay. But the mechanisms through which you will be able to have better conditions is through negotiation. The wage fixing mechanism that we have in this country is through negotiation. So when you go on strike, distancing yourself from engagement, how are we able to reach such an agreement?
Okay, so
it's for this reason that we called on National Labor Commission to intervene. And mind you, National Labor Commission is made up of representations from government, employers, and labor. So it is not as if it is an appendage of government. It doesn't even come in at all.
So you want National Labor, the UTAG to suspend its strike whilst you go on the negotiation?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, if you are coming to the negotiating table, to show good faith, like government has shown, you have to call off the strike.
Professor Nuno, just a quick one. Let me find out from you. Are you willing to suspend your strike whilst you go on the negotiation table? All right, I'm told we lost him, but hopefully the meeting on Wednesday is something that we'll be monitoring. Definitely, there must be a concrete solution to this. We don't want to get back here. Thank you so much, Ben Arthur, for coming. Professor Nuno is president of UTAG, and thank you so much, Mr. Austin Garme, for joining the conversation. I must say that Ofosu Asamoah, who is Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, earlier agreed to join, but he couldn't join. I'm grateful for your time, gentlemen. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of our programs.